Hey, what's up, guys? You can follow the podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube by searching the Cool Kids Table Podcast, and Twitter by looking up the Cool Kids Pod. The website is thecoolkidstablepodcast.com. My guest today is Kelsey Barillas. I met Kelsey through the podcast page, actually. We started messaging on there. She replied to one of the stories. I like to just stay active on that from time to time, talk to the listeners. You guys tell me what you liked or didn't like about the certain episodes or whatever. And we just started messaging about, like, the concentration camps, Trump's wall, like, quote-unquote Trump's wall. And I was like, dude, you know your shit. Like, so I checked out her page, and then I saw she had another page and another page. So I was like, dude, I got to get you on the podcast sometime. And she said, I'm down. The only thing is, I'm moving to San Diego, like, very, very soon. So I said, let's make it happen. So within that initial conversation, we set up a date to record, like, I think less than a week later. Kelsey's a therapist. She is a fucking do-it-all, and she does it all well. She's a published author, self-published author. She wrote How I Became the Love of My Life, a memoir, and she's also a podcast founder and host of her podcast, a Spanglish podcast that's pretty badass, and that's called Acá Entre Nos. So she's a therapist. She got her master's in clinical psychology out of Pepperdine. So, I mean, it's fucking fascinating, hearing somebody like that with, the credentials to not just say it, but say it like with, she knows her shit. And it's fucking pretty cool to sit with someone like that and just get their take on it, on, not just the issues at hand, but just dating back to things in the past. And it's fucking really cool. This happened outside of a library, so the audio quality isn't all that great. It's still pretty good, but you can just tell, once in a while, like, you'll hear somebody passing by. There was a lot of dog walkers. And I mean, for just last minute kind of thing, like, let's get this done, it went really well. So make sure you follow her on her things. Her writer's page is KBeautifulMind_, and the podcast page is Acá Entre Nos. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to the Cool Kids Table Podcast. My guest today is Kelsey Barillas of Acá Entre Nos podcast, and she's also an author that runs the K Beautiful Mind Instagram page. Kelsey, how are you doing today?
Good, how are you? Thanks for having me on your show.
Thank you for coming on. How was your weekend?
It was good. It was pretty intense. I was in Tijuana for the weekend, volunteering with an organization, Border Angels. I don't know if you've heard of them. They're pretty known. They started with what they call the water drop-offs. So what they do is they go out into the desert where most of the immigrants walk through, and they drop off like jugs of water, and they try to kind of see like where they see that they have been walking through, so that people could have water out there and to decrease the deaths that happen for migrants. But they started this new thing called Caravan Love, and so what they do is twice a month they go out into Tijuana with donations from everywhere and anyone who comes. There was so many people from LA, Oakland, San Francisco, like, that made the weekend just to go to San Diego and be a part of this. And they basically divided us into groups with different leaders, and we hit different shelters where a lot of them are staying, and we got to, first and foremost, like, we were there to drop off donations, but we got to interact with the kids and hear their stories, the mothers. There was one shelter we went to, was only men, and so I got to, like, talking to them, and what they were running from and what they were, leaving back home. So it was really interesting, and so many mixed emotions from it all, and just it's such a humbling experience, and it grounds you. Like, it reminds you of like why we advocate for our people, and why we do this, like why we're here to be united and help each other and be a part of that. So it was wonderful.
That's great to hear. I was actually reading that I don't think it's a felony, but I know it's a crime if you go out there and put water now, or like give them food. It's ridiculous that you can't, like, you could go out there like the Minutemen militia, like with guns and ammo and like protecting the country, and that's fine. That's tolerated. That's allowed. And yet if you go out there with like water bottles, some food, like not food, but like I guess non-perishables, like you could be convicted of a crime.
Yeah, there was a guy that was just arrested that did it in Texas. I can't think of his name right now, but that went pretty viral. And yeah, I guess now it's a crime, and so that's why Border Angels is trying to see other ways that they can help. But it's unfortunate that it's a crime, and it's ridiculous, because it really is just like, it's not
compassion.
Yeah, it's just being compassionate. There's so many deaths for people that make that sacrifice to cross through the desert, and so they were dropping off waters. I have a friend who did it, and she told me that like she and another friend took also like sanitary pads and tampons for the women, and we're also leaving them there. But yeah, from what I have heard, or what I heard this weekend from some of the leaders, I guess a lot of the ICE officers were dumping out the water.
Like, what kind of, I mean, I don't question their morals or ethics, but like, that's extra, like, I get it, it's your job to protect the country. If that's how you see protecting the country, is letting these people that are running for their life most of the time, not even offer them water, in the desert. Like, what kind of evil, that's an unnecessary evil. That's how the youngins say, extra. Question, was that your first time doing this type of thing? Not this type of thing, but I mean with the Border Angels?
Yeah, so I have a conocido, I guess you could say, friend who works for the VA, and they went to the actual camps. And so when they did it, it was more of an individual-like thing. Him and his just group of friends took a bunch of donations, dropped them off. And he had told me that a lot of the people didn't have shoes, didn't have socks, and were barefoot or needed shoes. And so he was saying that some of even the kids, like, he would have like, balls and crayons and stuff for them, and they wanted shoes. And so I spoke to some of my friends, and I think I want to do a shoe drive. And I did it on behalf of Acá Entre Nos and myself. So that's how I promoted it or marketed, I guess you could say. But I lost my train of thought. So I did the shoe drive on behalf of Acá Entre Nos, but I put it on all my social media, and I just told people I'm just collecting shoes. I've heard that they need shoes. So we collected, me and my friend Cindy, who just decided to join in. She put a box at one of the gyms locally here in Monrovia, and then one at a restaurant. And then through our friends, we collected over 200 pairs of shoes.
Nice.
Yeah, and we took them out there. But so my point was, we tried to do the shoe drive, and we were just going to drop them off somewhere, because I didn't know, I was like, I'm not going to TJ by myself to take them. I don't know where I would go. And so I was reaching out to organizations and trying to see, okay, who takes donations over there? And so then one of my friends was like, hey, have you heard of Border Angels? They do the water drop-off. I was like, oh, yeah, I've heard of the water drop-off. I heard about it actually on the news in Univision. They had interviewed, like, the guy that started that. And so she was just like, yeah, I'm sure they do donations too. So then when I looked on their website and reached out to the person that organizes it, her name was Megan. She said, oh, well, we just started this new thing where we're taking groups of people to interact with the people and show them that not all Americans are anti-immigrants and that we do care. And so she's like, we're calling it Caravan of Love, and we go out there and take the stuff. And so then I told my friend Cindy, do you want to come with me? Like, we'll just take the shoes, but also volunteer. So we arrived Friday, did the drop-off, took everything that we collected from out here. We had people from LA, Irvine, the OC, Monrovia, El Monte, everywhere, Arcadia, that just gave us shoes. And a lot of people were asking, like, do you need diapers? Do you need this? But I just did only shoes because it was going to be easier for us to just carry and load up a car. But now I want to do it again, and there's so much more that people need. But yeah, so we show up, drop off Friday, and then Saturday we met with them at 10 a.m. And it's a group of a bunch of people. And I'm talking like people from everywhere. I met a lawyer. I met a commercial real estate guy que se miraba que tenían dinero. Like you could tell that these people had money. And honestly, to the point where it's like, for all they care, like they don't care, or you would think they wouldn't care, like this isn't my problem. But there was just so many people that like care, and it was nice to see like Caucasians and Filipinos and Asian descent, African Americans, a lot of Latinos there that care. And I think it was also nice for the immigrants to see that, because a lot of them there have this mentality that we are ugly, that we don't care about them, and we don't care if they die in the desert, and we don't care what their issues are. And so them seeing like
the diversity
of the people that were volunteering. There was an Armenian family. It was the father, the wife, and their 3 daughters, and they go at least once a month to do this, and they collect from like their community, and they get donations together and go once a month. And I was just like, wow, like it was really nice to see the diversity, especially, I'll be honest, especially from the Caucasian community. I think a lot of us, especially Latinos, that are trying to advocate for our people, and we're seeing the racism and discrimination. I don't know about you guys, but I've gotten to the point where I'm like, fuck white people sometimes, because of the shit I've read and the shit I've heard them say. And I'm like, screw you guys, for treating my people this way, or for treating my community this way. But the people I met this weekend were like, some of us give a shit. And actually the commercial real estate guy and his wife were there. His wife is not white. She's like Portuguese and something else, but she speaks Spanish. And so they met volunteering, and so then they dated and got married. And so he was telling me, like, I don't talk to my parents. They're very racist. I work in an office where almost everybody voted for Trump, but I am the voice in that office that, educates and tells people, like, get out there and volunteer just once, and you will see that these aren't criminals, these aren't gang members, these are people running from that. And so they do it all the time, and they work with other organizations too. They throw charity events. They're people of money. They actually were telling me about a dinner where like people are going to pay $500 to go to this dinner, and they have to like donate and all this stuff. So them alone were amazing. And then she had other friends there that were a part of some kind of like women's group of like rich women, housewives that are just trying to see how they can help and collecting money. So yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy to see people from everywhere, from poor to rich to this is what I do, to a nurse, or just a lady who said, oh, I just wanted to bring my daughter so she could see what's going on. And there was a couple who took a newborn baby, like not newborn, but I think he was like 7 months or something. And they're like, yeah, we do this all the time. And the lady had the little, like,
backpack
where you put the
Your
baby in,
yeah.
and she had the baby in the back, and she was rolling in a TJ like that. And I was just like, wow, like, this is amazing. So a lot of people that care, a lot of people that do care. I think it's hard for the immigrants to see that because of what's going on in the news and what, you know, that right now it seems like Trump's voice and whoever stands by him might be a little louder than the rest of us, but there is a lot of people who care, and a lot of people donated things, so it was nice to see that unity.
That's awesome. Next time you do that, let me know, and I'll shout it out to my listeners and my social media so that we can get more.
Yeah,
great.
So I have a pretty crazy summer, like, because I'm in weddings and all kinds of stuff, and I'm starting a new job and relocating, so I'm thinking around September, but I do want to start promoting it soon. What I did hear from the people is a lot of them were like, oh, I've been here for 8 days, I've been here for 15 days, I've been here for 2-3 months, and they're just kind of waiting. They're waiting for their application to be processed, they're waiting to be called. They literally are a number, and it's like, I'm number 1,400 and blah blah blah, and I'm waiting kind of thing. So they all have a number, and they just kind of wait at these shelters. But a lot of them were saying, I was asking, because I was like, I want to do this again, and I want to know what I need to bring. So the border has set new laws, because apparently a lot of organizations were, like, bringing donations, and they don't take used shoes anymore. We got fined. We paid the fine to get the shoes across, and the guy that organizes with Border Angels kind of knew the officer, and sort of bribed him, like, come on, dude, like, we're just going to take him to the shelters. But they don't take you can't get used clothes or used shoes across anymore, because they think you're going to, like, set up a tianguis and, you know, like a swap meet and try to sell them. But because they knew Border Angels, the guy was like, all right, just pay this much, and then, you know, you can get across. But he literally told them first and last time, because we had bags and bags of shoes, and then obviously other people donated other things. But you can donate used blankets, you can donate used clothes or used shoes. It has to be new for you to get it across, which is crazy. You'd think people would want to sell more new things than used things, but I don't know what it is that Mexico's law or rule is. They said that it was to stop disease spreading and stuff like that, like, but honestly I think it's just, you know, a political thing. So what a lot of the people were saying that they needed was, like, underwear, bras. The men needed boxers, socks, and obviously, like, toothbrush, deodorant, shampoo. The ladies would be like, oh, do you have any kids lotion, like, you know, and then, like, bug spray and things like that, because there's so many of them in these shelters that only can, you know, shelter, let's say 100 people, but the shelter's at full capacity at, like, 200, and so they're, like, sharing beds, and you know,
not the best sanitary conditions.
Exactly.
So they just need the basic necessities.
So it's just the basic necessities. So I saw another family that apparently does this often, and what they did, the guy was telling me that what they did is they had people make Ziploc bags for them. Like, do you want to donate? Make 20, 30 Ziploc bags. Like, your family makes 20, 30, and then the next family makes 20, 30, and put, you know, like a pad in there for a woman, and shampoo and toothbrush. And so then it was easier with them with their donations, because they were just handing out these Ziploc bags. So I definitely think that's something I would want to do next time, and just collect, like, packages of, like, underwear and socks for men, for women, for kids, because think about it, they're just coming here with the
what
clothes
they have on
their, and a backpack of maybe one outfit, because you can't carry that much walking through all of that. And a lot of them did have, like, there was a woman that was like, oh, do you have anything in a size 6 for shoes, because I've been wearing this size 9. and so I'm wearing 2-3 socks to fit into the shoe, and I tie it really tight, and it's still really big. And so we had actually a couple pairs of shoes in her size, and so she was able to pick a pair out, so that was nice. But unfortunately, the shoes do have to be new, and the clothes does have to be new because there is fines and all kinds of stuff. But a lot of the people did need, a lot of the women were like, I need a bra. There was a lady that showed me her bra, and it was like she had a knot tied for the strap of the bra to the other piece, like holding it with like something because it had ripped. And so it's crazy because we don't think about that stuff, like we don't think like we go into our drawer and grab a pair of underwear every time you shower or change, and the simple fact that like that's all they wanted, and it was just little things that they wanted. Like I met a 16-year-old boy who came here by himself. Both of his brothers were killed and his father. He was living with his grandmother. His grandpa died of whatever. He wasn't killed. He died of, illness. And so his grandmother told him, like, you have to go because I'm not going to be here for long. So I'm going to move with, so-and-so, and we can't feed you. So you have to go and find a better life. And we have family in the U.S. Go to them, kind of thing. So he took off. He left. He was from Michoacan, Mexico, and he was 16 years old. And he didn't want anything. So I was like, hey, we have T-shirts, there's jeans, there's shoes, like, is there anything you need? And he's like, no. He's like, I'm okay. And I was like really trying to like, what do you need? Like, talk to me, kind of thing. And he's like, I don't need anything. And so I introduced myself. We started talking. He started telling me a little bit of his story. And I asked him, like, how are you feeling? Like, if you don't mind sharing, like, are you scared, or how did you make the decision to just come? And then he's like, well, I didn't want to leave, but, my brothers were killed, father was killed, and there's so much violence in the part of Michoacan that I'm from, and my grandmother pretty much said, like, I can't feed you, so you need to figure it out. And so I just grabbed my stuff and took off. And he's like, and I'm just kind of waiting, like, I'm just waiting, and hopefully I can get through and meet up with my family and work and make money and just make a living. Like, that's all I want to do. But he didn't want anything from the donations. And then, so, I left him alone, talked to him a little bit, and then he didn't seem like he really wanted to talk, so I kind of left him alone and told him thank you for sharing. And then I went and interacted with the kids and helped out with the donations, and then he comes over, and I just felt like a tap on my shoulder, and he said, hey, do you have pen and paper? And I was like line paper, or like, and he's like, yeah, I'd like to write, like, just write. And I was just like, wow, like, everything that we brought, anything and everything, he just wanted pen and paper. And so then we made it a mission to find pen and paper, because we had divided donations into like 3 pieces, because we were going to 3 different shelters for the day, and there was no pen and paper in the load of donations we had brought to that shelter. There was like crayons and coloring children, books, but we didn't think of something so simple, pen and paper. And so I told the other girls and the other people, and I was like, we need pen and paper. This kid didn't want anything but pen and paper. I need to find pen and paper. And so we ended up finding pen and paper, and he was happy, and he's like, oh, gracias, like, I appreciate, you making the effort to, like, find it for me. And then I just told him, like, take care of yourself, and, have faith, and I hope that you can get across and be with your family, because he had no one.
So, at 16, I can't even imagine that. I'm fortunate to have both parents and, 4 siblings, and like to be alone, trying to get into a different country, not know the language, and it's like, this is what we're scared of. This is why we want a wall. This is who we're, using these political targets as like, this is wrong. bad hombres, as he says. Like,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous hearing a story like that, how he's just probably a student, probably a writer, and uncapped potential. And just, like, that's what sucks. What is he asking for? Like, you have shoes, clothes, whatever. Like, what do you want? What do you need? And he's like, nah, man, I'm good.
Yeah,
Pen
he's
and
like, no
paper.
necesito nada. And he told me, he's like, I don't need anything because he's like, at this shelter, we could only be here for a short period of time. He's like, so I don't know where I'm going after this. He said, if I have to stay in Tijuana, I have to find a job and a place to live, or he would probably go to like another shelter that can house him longer. But he's waiting for a process. He brought all the death certificates of the people that have died in his family. So he was applying for asylum. But he said, I don't know where I'm going. So if I take any of, that stuff, he's like, si agarro alguna de esas cosas, nomás voy a estar cargando. Like, I'm just going to be carrying it. And I just thought, like, wow, like, to be in that unknown, not knowing where you're going to end up next, I can't imagine. I just can't imagine. I've been in situations, in childhood. I've had sort of a rough childhood, single mom, stepdad was deported, and so I've lived, wondering, how are we going to pay rent or bills, or maybe even can say I've been hungry, but not to that extreme, and I just couldn't imagine, because here you know the people around you. If it's the town you grew up in, your mom or family can reach out to friends and maybe really, really seek help, and they'll help you if you really need it. But it being in that situation for a lot of these people, they don't know anything. They don't know anyone. And they're coming from violent backgrounds. They're coming from
to a violent city.
Yeah. And a lot of them had questions. It was crazy because you'd start conversation with them and they would be like, oh, pues, it was like, you're the American, so you're going to be able to answer the questions to all of my worries, kind of thing. And so I had mothers that were like, I heard this question so much, and it was so hard for me to not be able to give them that, oh no, you're going to be okay. But a lot of them were asking, are they going to take my kids away? And so this whole kids in cages thing is a big deal, and the way it's being heard.
It should be a bigger deal here.
No, it should be a bigger deal here where it shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
But to them, it's their biggest fear right now. And I met women like with 3-4 kids, and their biggest concern wasn't where are we going to end up. It was like, are they going to take my kids away? Now that my application is there, are they going to take my kids away? And it was just really hard for me to hear them, ask that question, because I couldn't tell them no. I couldn't tell them you're going to be okay. I didn't know what to say. I just told them, Dios quiera que no. A lot of them were very faith and, hopeful and religious, and so I just kept saying, like, Dios quiera que no, and, they would answer, well, I don't regret coming here. I made this decision because of what I've been dealing with over there, and I'm hopeful. Like, they would just say, I'm hopeful, and I hope that they don't separate us. But they had 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds. The most we saw was 4, 5 to 6-year-olds with them. There was a little girl. She was so sweet. She comes up to me and she goes, "You're pretty." And it just comes up to me and goes, "You're really pretty." And I was just like, oh, I was like, thank you. And I was like, what's your name? And, started talking with her, and I had chalk, and I was like, do you want to draw with me? And she goes, yeah. She was like 5 years old, and I have a niece who's 5, so it was really hard pill for me to swallow. And so I started talking to her, and I was like, where are you from? And she goes, oh, I'm from El Salvador. And I was like, who are you here with? And she said, oh, I'm here with my mom and my brother, and that's my brother over there too. He was like an older kid as well. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, are you the youngest? And she goes, yeah. And I asked her, like, like, what do you like to do? What do you like to do for fun? And she's like, well, I just like to play with whatever they like, toys that they had there and stuff. And she looks at me and she goes, do you know how long we're going to be here? And I was thrown off, like super thrown off by the question. And I said, no, I called her Mamacita. I was like, no, Mamacita, I don't know. And I was just like, I was like, do you know how long you've been here? And she goes, 3 months and 5 days.
It's like prison.
And for a 5-year-old to be counting, and I asked her, I said, ¿Tú cómo sabes eso? Like, how do you know that? And she said, pues, mi mami nos dice, pero tenemos un calendario. Like, we have a calendar. And I just thought, our biggest worries on the daily are what? Like, we think about random things, not how many more days will I be here? How many more days till we get somewhere? How many more days till we have stability? And as a therapist, I just thought, the trauma that's what I was going to tell you. That's these generations.
That's what I was going to segue to, as far as you being a therapist. Like, we talk about, the bullshit here, the video games, the action movies. Like, you've heard it. It's traumatizing to the children. That's why there's so much violent crime now. La 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 la. That's all bullshit, And yet, these kids are presenting themselves. The ones here at the concentration camps are being presented in court as like 5-year-olds. What kind of legal system is in place to allow that? There's already been reports of inappropriate touching and all that. Mm-hmm. I might be mistaken on this part, but I read something this weekend, but I can't verify it yet, that there's like certain hours they could go to the restroom. I have a 3-year-old. She's about to be 4. My daughter doesn't. If I tell her, hey, you can use the restroom between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m., she doesn't understand what that means.
My niece, I'm always like, do you need to go to the bathroom before we go anywhere? She's like, no, I'm fine. And then we get there, she's like, I really need to pee. And I'm like, I just asked you. I know, but I gotta go, please, now. Like, now. Yeah. And so any 4, 5, 3-year-old, what do you mean I can't go to the bathroom right now?
They're sleeping on the floor. Like, it's between, it's not an actual number, but it's between $150, which is still ridiculous, to $750 a day that they're spending, that us, the taxpayers, are paying for these for-profit concentration camps to hold these children, and yet they don't have toothpaste, they don't have soap, they don't have body wash. I mean,
they don't have anything.
What are they paying? It's all for profit, like the prisons. These are all backhand favors that, how do we allow this to happen, is what I keep telling myself. Like, somebody should be held accountable, because, like, I think that's how we started our conversation, through social media. Mm-hmm. I put that, the concentration camps, and then you replied to that, and that's where this all kicked off.
Yeah.
Because we were on the same page, and then, social media, I saw your account, and I saw that what you were doing. I was like, holy fuck, no wonder she's up on game. Because, a lot of people, I'm not naive that everybody has a lot going on. So some people tell me, like, I like listening to my good friend Israel's podcast episode with you, because you guys were informing me about stuff that I'm oblivious to, because I got so much going on in life. Mm-hmm. So having him on, like, brought up so many different topics that people were like, oh shit, like, this is going on right now. And when I saw yours, I was like, oh shit, no wonder she knows about all this stuff. Because a lot of people, I post something, and you'll get a few, like, hey, what does that mean? Like, like when the one I did yesterday, the $750, I was like, it's not an absolute number, so don't let the right wing media, like, disprove it. But it's between $150 and $750 per person, so it's an average. The average should be about $300-400, right? But if you're spending $400 a day on a person, that's what you're paying. Shouldn't they have some basic necessities? I'm not saying let them live like kings. Don't fucking put them in cages either.
Yeah.
Fucking.
Well,
go ahead.
No, I totally agree with you, and the thing is like, this is already a big discussion of how much we spend in jails, right?
Yeah.
And how many people are in there for the most stupidest crimes. I understand that if you murdered and raped people and did something serious, then you deserve to be in there, and do your time or whatever. But there is people in there for getting pulled over 3 times with weed, and now you're in there for 5 years or whatever it is, that they did. And I'm not saying don't hold people accountable for their crimes, and I know that there has to be laws in place and all of that, but these are children who don't understand why they're being caged, children whose parents one day told them, we're leaving. And when you're 5 years old,
you do what your parents say.
You do what your parents say, but you also question it. Where are we going? My niece is, where are we going now? Where are we going now? Why are we driving so far? And so now you have 4 or 5 year olds that don't understand why they've been walking for 3-4 days. Like, there was a mother who told me where she came from, and, she said, I was like, how long did it take you guys? And she said, 4 days and 5 nights. 5 nights, 4 nights and 5 days. And so these kids are wondering, why the hell have I been walking or arriving in strange places that I don't know, or hiding, or, sleeping on the floor, in comparison to whatever they had at home. I'm sure their situation wasn't good at home. I'm not saying they had a 2-story casa with, a really nice bed, but in comparison to whatever they must have had, they don't understand. They just don't understand. And so now they're arriving at these camps or shelters, and especially in the camps, in the shelters, they have the freedom to be outside because these are the people that have applied and are waiting. But these shelters don't have anything. I have a picture that I took of a kitchen, and I can share it and you can post it. I got permission from the shelter to take a picture, and it's a small kitchen with like this shelf that's made of just a thin wood piece, and then there's a really tiny stove, and it's supposed to cook and feed more than 150 people, but it looks like it's falling apart. Like, it literally looks like you put one thing on that shelf and it's gonna fall. And so it was just, they don't have the money. One of the priests, or he's a pastor, that ran one of the shelters, he was crying. He was crying because I guess we're the organization that has brought the most donations in a while. And so he was crying, and he just said, God bless you guys. Thank you so much. And it was just crazy to see, how, especially in Tijuana, these shelters don't have funding compared to some of the shelters we have here. We already have that issue in America where there isn't enough funding, and our homeless community is only increasing, but there they really don't have anything. And so when they said, donate food, all they want is rice, beans, and a big thing of sopa. Like, you don't need to bring them meat. You don't need to bring them anything that is, that's all they wanted. Like, bring us costales de rice and beans next time. Because we asked them, what would you like for us to bring next time? And they're like, pues comida y calzones y calcetines. Like, it was the simple stuff. And we can go into our pantry and make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You and I right now can be like, hey, you want a steak? Let's go get some food. Like, we can have a burger. We can have these things. And they just want the simplest thing just to eat. And so it was just it's so dehumanizing to these people. It's, the kids are, even though they had such a wonderful spirit, still they were laughing, they were giggling, they were coloring, with us and interacting. But I can't imagine having that much stress at 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, or even as a teenager. That 16-year-old boy, like, all he has known is Mexico. Yeah. He's 16. I'm sure he had friends. I'm sure he had, family. And not only that, but, like, he's had these deaths in his family, and then his grandma just telling him, you have to go. And he told me his brother died May. It was like late May, and then the last brother that was killed was late May, and his grandma was like, you have to go. So he hasn't even had that process to grieve, that time to grieve. No, grieving goes in stages, and so you can't even stop and cry because you have to figure out what you have to do next. And to take off on his own and I mean, I get it. His grandma couldn't come with him. I'm not saying, why'd they let him go alone? No, but like, it took so much of him to just get his things and go by himself. And watching him sit there, like, he was just watching, you know, we all arrive, and the kids run up to you right away, and they're like trying to, hola, ¿cómo te llamas? Some of them were like, do you have a phone? I want to watch YouTube, or things like that. And we couldn't give them our cell phone. We couldn't give them cash or anything. But the kids were happy to see other people, and so he was one of the people that caught my eye, because he was just kind of sitting back and just kind of watching. And I'm sure a lot of them think like, oh, these gringos are coming here giving us their, you know, leftovers kind of thing, because there's some people that looked angry. I'm not gonna lie, there's some people that would just kind of watch us like, oh, we don't want none of your shit, like, you know, because it's that pride of like, you're here to belittle me, you're here to give me your leftovers, but you don't understand me. And so I kind of got a little bit of that vibe from him when I first went up to him, because he was just like, oh no necesito nada, like a little bit of attitude, like I don't need shit from you. But I have teenage brothers, and I can imagine how he must feel, and that feeling of like, I don't have anything, and who the hell are you to come here and think you understand me? But once I got to talking with him, and we connected, because my stepdad is from Michoacan, and my stepdad was actually killed in violence in Michoacan after a couple of years of being out there. He was also deported, and so I told him, oh, you know, I've been to Michoacan a couple of times when I was younger. I can't imagine the violence that's going on there, but I was like, you know, my stepdad was from there, and he was unfortunately a victim of that. And so then that's when he started opening up and was like, yeah, well, my dad was killed, my brothers were killed, and he just was like, but I don't need anything, thank you, because I don't know where I'm going next, and I don't know what I'm gonna take with with me. And I was just like, okay. And so when he came up to me and wanted just pen and paper, I did whatever it took.
You made it your mission.
That pen and paper, yeah.
It's such unfortunate thing, because, you know, this happens all around the world, right? And when it makes big news, like, oh, this is what's going on in China, communist China, they're doing this, or you're like, oh, damn those commies, they got to protect their people, they got to take care of their people. And I'm from Mexico, I was born there. These are our neighbors. These are our people. El Monte. I lived there for 29 years, like I was telling you. It's like 75% Mexican.
And they're a sanctuary city. Amani, or was, I don't know.
Yeah,
if
they still are. Yeah, they just the mayor put something yesterday that, you know, they will not assist ICE or anything like that. You know, they go by the law, and because ICE can't just come. That's another thing I want to get into, you know, but like ICE can't just come and get you. You have to have a warrant. Like a warrant is signed by a judge, and ICE warrants are not signed by a judge. So it's not even though it's an official document, it won't stand up in court. But if you don't know your rights, and that's what I was doing the research on too. You know, I told you, like, I don't research much. I just kind of like read what I like, and then I learn that way.
Into it. Mm-hmm.
But then for this one, I was like, okay, she's gonna come with
no,
big bang, so I gotta be ready.
I don't have much on the topic for you.
No. But just like I was like, okay, so I was like the last 2-3 days just browsing different websites, reading, and you know, all stuff that I do. I've talked about it before. I do verify. I look for the source. That's why when I put that thing yesterday, I followed it up with like, immigration is coming way down. There's more people going to Mexico than coming this way, and these aren't opinions. These are facts. Like, people are choosing to ignore facts in favor of their opinions. And the people coming over here, yes, some will sneak in, right? Some people, some bad apples, as they say. Well, that's in anything. In any community, there's a few bad apples. Some people will play the part and get here and then do trouble. Yes. But what about all the rest of them?
That's another big topic that we can get into and probably be here for hours. But honestly, why is there those bad apples? If you were traumatized for your entire life, you come from poverty, all you know is, I need to find a way to survive. And if it's killing and robbing, it's not the right thing to do, but some of them, that's their last option.
That's their survival. That's how they survive.
Why do we have in these, you know, areas, urban areas in LA, gang members and this, it's at an all-time high, and the violence, but all those kids knew was that. they come from generations of trying to survive, and sometimes selling some dope is the only way to survive.
That's all you know.
Yes, I'm not saying, let them go, let them be free. No, I get it, but like, we have to look as human beings, what led to this? Why is our homelessness at an all-time high? Why are we in this huge drug use epidemic
with the
that's
opioids
going on? Why are our kids still turning to gangs for that support, for that financial stability? Why are we still, having 16-year-old drug dealers or 15-year-old? Why is this happening?
I say it every time.
As human beings, where have we failed? And one of the things that one of the volunteers that goes he lives in San Diego. That's where I'll actually be relocating for this new job. And so I was telling him about that. And he's like, yeah, I live here. I do this once a month. And he was a white man, older, in his 50s, had a camera. He was like photographing and stuff like that. And he says, he would ask for permission before taking pictures of the kids and stuff, but he was like, I'm doing this because we are the people that need to put it out there. Like, we are the people that need to show the rest of Americans that have no idea what's going on and just hear what's on the news, what this is really like. These children are as wonderful and as happy and as great as our neighbors' children. They're not criminals. They're 5-year-olds. They're 8-year-olds. They're even 16-year-olds. And they're not coming with the mentality of like, oh, I want to take advantage of the system. They're not. They don't have that mentality, and that Trump has put that out there that's what they're coming with, but they're just coming because they want to get away, because they want to survive. A lot of them said, I'd be okay staying here in Tijuana. I'm open to go to the United States, but I'd be okay staying here in Tijuana. But Tijuana's just as poor. Tijuana is just as violent.
It's the most violent city in the world
right now.
And
so they know that. And so they're like, if Tijuana was safe, I'd be okay staying here. If my country was safe, I would have been fine there. I didn't wake up thinking, I want to go to America because everyone wants to fucking be here. Half of us don't even want to be here anymore because of the shit that's happening. We know we're privileged. We know we have way more than other places, but so they're not coming with that mentality, and so I asked the guy, he's like, I do this once a month and all this stuff, and I told him, I said, well, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. I used the word work, and he corrected me, not, rudely or anything, but he said, I don't consider this work. And I was just like, oh, well, you know what I meant, like, and then he's like, no, I understand, but here's the thing. He's like, I really have not, like, at first I volunteered because I felt, I just kind of need something to do. Like, he's like, I'm not going to lie. I just thought I need something to do and I want to get involved. And where can I get involved? Because he was like, I also volunteer at, like, homeless shelters and stuff like that. I'm assuming he's retired because he sounded like he had a lot of time, but we didn't go into that. He said, but now I just feel like it's my duty as a human being. He's like, as a Christian, because he was Christian, he's like, as just a human being, it's our duty to be here for each other, to help each other out. Because when we go, he said, I'm the old man, he said it like that, he's like, when I go, because I'll go before you, he's like, but when we go, what are we leaving behind? And so, what's going down right now, is something that has, grew from generations, and it's the damage that we've done. We can again get into it and it'll probably go forever, but America did this to Guatemala, they did
Salvador,
this to El Salvador,
Colombia,
they did this to
we're trying to do it to Venezuela right now.
We're doing it to Venezuela.
We did it to Mexico,
and if we want to go into the Middle East, we did that.
Iraq, Iran, Syria, we
did that. And so we're not taking responsibility. And I hear this from some of the younger generations that I'll get into conversations. Well, I didn't do it.
We as a society, we as a people,
we didn't do it. I can sit here and be like, well, I didn't do it. It was my ancestors, so why should I give a shit? But this is what they left us. And so what sucks is they did this, and now they're dead, and then we're dealing with it. But how are we going to fix it? What are we going to do to help? I'm not saying that America should be responsible for, making Mexico go from a third world country to a, to ideal like us, or we don't have, like, I'm not saying we have to go into Guatemala and put all this money into them, but we need to figure out how we need to help, because if we can't afford them here, if that's just as true as they claim that we can't afford them here, then we need to see how we can go in there and help, how we can build, communities for them and safety, so that they don't have to come here, but so that they can also go to bed at night and be okay and not wonder, like, will I be dead tomorrow? And a lot of the families had the same experiences, same stories. They're running from violence. They were hungry. A girl, she was 24. She shared with me that she was kidnapped. She was kidnapped, going to work one day, kidnapped. She met a man, a part of the kidnappers, who shared with her that he was only a part of that because he was being threatened. Either you roll with us or we kill your entire family. But he helped her escape. He got her a phone, told her how to get out, and was like, if they catch you, you don't name me, you didn't know me, because I will be dead, and so will my family, but I'm helping you. Helped her escape. She went back to her family, went back to her home. They knew where she lived. They, had been eyeballing her kind of thing and caught her walking alone. I don't know how they choose people that they're going to kidnap, but they went back to her house. Her family had to hide her, and they're like, oh, we know she's here, blah, blah, blah. And the family was like, no, she's not. Like, we haven't heard from her, anything. And then they told the family, you have 72 hours to get her back to us. That pride of, like, we need her because she got away from us, so either you get her back to us or we're gonna come and you all die. And so the family got up and left. It was her two sisters, her little brother, one of their daughters, and the mother and the grandmother. No men in the home. Father left at a young age or whatever. Like, there was just no father figure. So it was all of them got their shit and left, because they're all these women and one little brother, I think he was like 12 or 13, are being threatened that you're going to die. So you leave your house, you leave the little bit that you have there, because she said, we didn't have much, we were really poor, but you leave it and you go. Another family shared with me that they owned a little store, like a little liquor store or concession store, and they were taxing them. They were like, you need to give us money or this property is ours. And they're like, we don't have anything to give you. Like, we don't have anything. A couple that runs it gets slaughtered, murdered. Mother goes to the store, sees that they're dead, grabs her her grandson, takes off, because that's all she could do. It was her and her grandson and the parents of the grandson. Now, the kid was like, I don't know, 5-6 years old, so he probably will be able to grow up with some stability if they can find that, and maybe not remember that his parents were murdered, but
he's gonna ask, where are my parents? What happened? My parents? Yeah.
And she said, he's been asking me every night, when am I going to see mommy and papi? When am I going to see mommy and papi? And the lady shared with me, she's like, I still have the image, I have nightmares, my son was surrounded by blood, and over the little counter where people go and pay was his wife, and they murdered them. And I know that it was because we didn't have any money to give the
extortion. They were being extorted, and they didn't have money to pay.
We didn't have money. And so you heard so many stories like this, and I can't imagine.
What I tell people is, like, okay, I lived in Monte for 29 years, and that's my life, right? I continue to work out here, so I could, importantly, number one, obviously, is my daughter, but my social circle is out here, and, obviously, I'm an adult, so I could do it on my own, but I wanted that camaraderie, that's something I missed. I'm a social person, and I was like, dude, I need my friends in my life. But so just a little background, right? And imagine I had to be like, hey, we need to go to Canada, grab my daughter, like, we're leaving right now, and let's say we go to the French Canadian, like, they don't speak English, and we're leaving right now, like, there's no car, there's no nothing, we're walking that way, we're gonna go over there, and leave everything you love, leave everyone. You can't tell people where you're going because they'll come and ask. I don't like sharing the story. I just give them minor details because I don't have their permission. I haven't asked. I don't want to ask. I have family right now hiding here in the U.S. Literally got here like in August. Same thing. Kidnapped. They got away because the newspaper got involved, like media got involved, and so they allowed them. They were, oh wow, we found them over here. Like, no, they were kidnapped, and so they came. They got political asylum because it was such a big deal in the part of where I'm from, so that they got the political asylum fairly quick. Now they're like threatening deportation and everything, and it's like they can't work, they can't do anything because they're on like house arrest. And when I talked to them, I was like, what do you want to do out here? They're like, I don't want to be out here, dude. Like, I want to go back to my town. Like, all my friends are there, my school, my work, everything is there. Like, I'm not here by choice. Like, as great as America is, this isn't my home. My home is over there.
And it will never be home for many of these people.
And if I go home, I'll get killed.
They just adjust. That's what it is. They adjust. They don't come here to take anything from anybody. I come from... My mother was an immigrant. I didn't grow up with my biological dad, but my stepdad was an immigrant. I knew the fear that firsthand, I knew that when my mom would drive was like, put your seatbelts on because I don't have a driver's license. She passed and died a citizen, but it took her years. It took her years to do all of that. And so you hear, oh, well, why don't they do it the right way? And why don't...
I've been doing it the right way for 29 years, and I'm still not there. I speak the language.
And you grew up here, and this is home for you, and you went to school here. Yeah, exactly.
And I'm still not even halfway through the process. And that's what I'm saying. Like, so, quote unquote, I'm doing it the right way. I pay taxes. I started a business here. I went to college. Not for long, but I went to college. I've done what is asked of us, and it's still not good enough. And I know there's more people out there doing much more. Where I would say, yeah, they deserve it. I'm not an idiot. I could see that. But you hold us to such a high standard. Like, we have to be the perfect person to fit the system, and yet it's like
half of these Americans aren't perfect.
Exactly. I told a few people, like, it's funny because, like, do you know the amendments? Do you know the Bill of Rights? And they're like, what is that? And you're like, oh, so you were born 20 miles north of where I was, but that makes you a better person. Like, I didn't choose to be born in Mexico. I'm not complaining. I'm proud to be Mexican. I'm proud to live in America. But you see the proud Texan, the proud California, like, oh, you were born there. Like, I didn't choose. They don't know
who our first president was.
Yeah.
They don't know the history, and they don't give a shit, probably, but...
It's my land. They're taking my job.
When you take the test, you should know. And I have a friend who's a lawyer, and he was saying that he took the questionnaire or whatever for the citizenship, the test that they have to take, just to be funny with a couple of friends, and had them take it, and they all failed it. It's Americans who failed the citizenship test that these immigrants are supposed to know.
And in English, I think that law just passed maybe 2 years ago where you could take it in a different language. But my dad took it in English, and like, he don't speak English.
My mother did too.
And it's like, how is this fair? Like, oh, that's an American. Is that the native tongue? Like, you can only do things in English.
And
like,
that's a popular thing you hear right now.
Like, speak English.
We speak English here. We speak American. I had a lady tell me we speak American. I was like, it's actually English, ma'am. I'm an educated woman, and I'm going to continue to speak Spanish up in this fucking graduation because my tia's sitting next to me, and that's all she speaks. So that's what we're speaking. So turn around before I give you some. Like, I was at my cousin's graduation, and there was a older, white couple sitting in front of us, and I was talking to my tia. My tia had just arrived from Texas, so we were talking in Spanish because I was like, oh, tia, y esto y el otro, and the lady kept going, like, would turn around with a big old breathing. And finally I just like looked at her and I said, is there a problem, ma'am? And she goes, we speak American here. And I was like, it's actually, we speak English here, but we no longer just speak English here because you need to catch up. There's so many of us that are bilingual. And I was like, and this is the best way that I can communicate with my aunt. And my aunt was just sitting there like, mija, why are you doing this?
I'm proud of you. Good job.
So this is the language I'm going to speak. I was like, so go ahead and turn around and whatever it is that you were doing until the graduation starts. And she just looked at me like, how dare this little bitch tell me this? But I was like, I'm sorry.
I was talking to my brothers about this. Growing up, I don't remember seeing many. I don't even know what the language, so I don't want to like disrespect anybody, but I don't remember seeing like Asian billboards up. And now on the freeway, like on the 60, on the 10, I see like just in whatever language it is. I think it's Chinese, but that's just an assumption. And I'm like, I don't remember that. So it's like, I'm not complaining. I don't mean it that way. I mean, there's so many languages here. You see the Pepsi commercial. I think it was Coke. Like they had the Arabic, English, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, French, and it's like, there's so many people here.
Now.
Isn't that what's beautiful? Isn't that what makes America great?
And this is what we are. Yeah.
And so for people to still have that mentality of like, this is what I do. Maybe in the 1980s, predominantly it was English, but now it's like, I would still say it's the number one language spoken, but most people are now bilingual, even if it's not Spanish.
Well, there's people that their first and only language is English, but even them, their little kids are in preschools where they're teaching them Spanish and Mandarin, Spanish and Chinese, Spanish and some other, Portuguese, Spanish and this. Those dual language preschools are on the rise. Elementary, my niece's school, from 1st to 5th grade, you have the option of having your child in these dual language classes because they understand the importance of being bilingual. These are people that are realizing, my child is going to make more money if they speak another language. As a therapist, my offer that I got for this job is $12,000 more a year than your monolingual English therapist.
And
it's just because I speak Spanish. Mi español es mucho a la madre because I don't talk it every day, but I got a huge offer in comparison to the therapist that probably applied for the same position with just one language. I have that advantage. And if I said I also speak Mandarin, guess what? Probably would have been another 10 because the fact that there's so many people here that speak other languages. And so I'm sorry, but if they can't adjust to that, then fuck them. They're jealous because they don't speak another language.
I share the story about my dad because my dad's very bossy, very like me. His English is, I wouldn't say terrible, but it's more terrible than it is good. And when we go out to dinner, my dad is like, in his butchered English, I'll take my steak, well done, with the Coke, mashed potatoes. And, some waiters do look at us a little funky. Like, and I speak great English. I could order for him, and my dad won't allow it. It's not just a pride. It's like, this is the only way I'll learn. Mm-hmm. And I remember being younger and telling my dad, like, not to say just white people, people that just speak one language. Like, you're learning a second language as an adult. Like, this is hard. Like, tell somebody to learn Spanish as an adult is like, what the fuck? Like, what's this ñ? Why do you have 2 R's and the ow? Like, there's 2 of them.
They
like,
can't roll their R's.
And I told him, like, what you're doing is amazing. Even though, and now he's like very confident in his English. Like, he'll order, like, for my mom, for himself. And I'm like, remember when you were scared? And I was never scared. I was just a little shy. And it's like, to see that mentality, and I told him, like, he doesn't need to learn English. He's already been here for fucking 30 years. Mm-hmm. He's doing great without it. But just to be able to, I'm going to learn the language because I need to communicate my ideas better with some of my coworkers. Because same thing, where he works at, like, predominantly Caucasian, I'd say about 95%. Mm-hmm. It's a union job. So when they go on strike, he's out there, like, on the front lines, like, and they're like, dude, like, you're very passionate about this. Like, yeah, like, this is my job, this is my career, this is what we got to do. And they're like, hey, you're not that bad of a guy yourself. Like, you love your family. You don't splurge on yourself. Like, you drive a modest car. Mm-hmm. Like, you give everything to your family. Like, you're just like me. And it's like, exactly, except I'm brown. And you're not. And that doesn't make me a less person than you are. I can vote now. I can do anything you can do. Yeah. And I don't think I'm better than you. Mm-hmm. I just think that we're on the same page. And me sharing my thoughts with you, like, because they'll ask him, right? And, like, that's why he wanted to learn English, because sometimes he couldn't get his message across.
Yeah.
And now they see him, and they're like, what do you think about this caravan? Like, la, la, la. And, like, isn't that bad? Like, they're all taking Mexico. Like, no, like, they're people running for their life. Like, this is, like, as a Mexican, I'd love to help them out in any way I can. My I guess his mother-in-law, my grandmother, lives in TJ. That's why I know so much about it. Like, it's the worst city in the world. They're not at war. All these Syria attacks and all that. In Mexico is worse. There's more deaths per capita. There's more deaths per day than countries at war, which is ridiculous. And for people to just disregard it as a language, you know, just like, I don't need it. Or if they want to think their kids will need it, they're in the wrong. And it's just that mentality of, like, it's my way. Like, your way is going to change. And if they fail to adapt...
The thing is, they're afraid. Think about it. And I'm sorry for these white folks listening, but they ain't got no culture. They don't have anything. And a lot of the things that they have, for example, country music. Look at the history. Started with the African Americans, or started with the slaves. Food, Southern food, also started with the black community. They love Mexican food. They party for Cinco de Mayo. They don't have anything to their name but being white, but having the higher, you know, hands for being white. And so then this brown educated person comes, or you get a black president, and it's threatening to the little bit that they have. And so that's what it is. That's all it is. It's a fear. It's a fear of, like,
I have it the easy way,
mixing.
And yet you're here with me.
Yeah.
I've met a few older Caucasian people, like, through my business, not my business, but through my lines of work. And I remember one time, I know he didn't mean to offend me, but I didn't take it as being offended. But he told me, like, you speak great for a brown man. And I told him, like, how am I supposed to speak? Like, in your mind, how was I supposed to sound? And he just, like, took it like, oh, fuck. Like, that's not what I meant. And I'm like, no, I understand what you're saying. But, like, do you stereotype and say, hey, like, make that assumption, like, he's going to have a thick accent, he's not going to, you know, speak the language. And he was from the East Coast, North Carolina. And so he had that, it's still South, I guess, it's considered South. And so he had that accent, and he goes, you don't have, like, a Southern, I've heard that I do have an accent, like, and I've heard that I don't. And I go, I just speak the language the way it's supposed to be spoken. Like, I don't add anything to it, because, you know, he had
There's
this
some
little...
Spanglish in there.
No, of course. I try not to, just because, you know, I like your whole thing, your podcast Spanglish. That's pretty cool. Because
I literally, as you have heard in this conversation, I speak English and Spanish. Sometimes I want to say the word in Spanish and it just comes out. So I was like, I'm Spanglish. That's who I am.
It's crazy. But great segue. You were talking about therapy. How did that start? Why did you start? Everything. We got time. I want to hear it. The listeners do too. You said your podcast hasn't really been about you, so share whatever you want to share. And if questions come up, I'll bring them up. But I don't have, like, it's not an interview, so I don't want to be like, oh, what do you think of it? But just, how did it start? Why did it start?
So, I'm a big believer of, we're here with a purpose. I'm a big believer that as human beings, we need to find a purpose, or we should find some kind of purpose and voice. So I can answer with saying that I feel this is my purpose. I feel that being a therapist, helping others, is what I was put on this earth to do. It's the thing that drives me. I'm passionate about helping others. And it's what makes me happy. But so when I was younger, middle school, I was a part of this thing called Link Crew. And it was like 8th grade middle schoolers being, you know, role models or leaders of middle school for the 6th and 7th graders. And so they'd kind of team us up, like little sister, big sister, little sister. Have you heard of that?
Yeah,
like programs
Big Brother
like that.
kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. And so they team us up with like 6th graders, 7th graders, and so it was more of like giving them guidance through like schooling and helping with tutoring and things like that. But Link Crew became more of a therapeutic thing. Like there was 6th graders or 7th graders sharing like stuff they were going through at home, or we would be the mediators when there was drama or like a fight or something like that. And so that's where I started. And I knew, like, I just have always, it's in my blood. I've had this, like, passion to, like, help others. I also think that being involved in school was sort of my escape from my childhood, and all the hard times. And so I was in every club you could think of. I was in dance team, and I was a water girl for the football team. Like, I was, you name it, I was involved. Leadership, Renaissance, ASB, the rallies, that was me, being a part of all of that. And so it was my escape, but it became my passion. I, surrounded myself with other people that were into that. The leadership teacher / leader of Renaissance at my high school became my mentor. We're still friends till this day. She helped me. My godfather, who's also a teacher there, helped me apply for college. I've had a lot of great role models and helpers through the high school journey. But I knew this is what I wanted to do. So, but I did change mentality a couple times. So when I went into school in undergrad, I declared a sociology major with a minor in criminology. So I wanted to get into the criminal justice system and help with those who are incarcerated, because my stepfather was incarcerated for a little bit and then deported. And so I was like, okay, I had a passion for that. I went through the application system actually for LA Sheriffs and almost got to the very end, the academy, and ended up talking to one of the chief officers about, he asked me why I wanted to be a cop, and I said, I don't want to be a cop. And he's like, wait, what? Like, why are you doing this? Why? And then I was like, well, I don't want to be a cop, but I'm applying to be a cop to get my foot in the door. My ultimate goal is to be a criminal psychologist and to get in there and be the support that these inmates need. And so he's like, well, you're wasting your time. Kind of gave me like by the time you get through this process and the police academy, you'll be done with your bachelor's, and you need a master's to be a therapist in our system. So just stick to school, like, don't be a cop. And so he just kind of talked me through like what the process would be, how much time I would have to put, being a cop and doing this till I can move up and all this stuff. And so I had like this different idea of like why I was doing it, or thought, if I'm a cop, I'll get my foot in the door. And at the time, my mom had cancer, and so I was head of household, and I'm like, I could really use whatever cop money and benefits they have for my family. So then I said, okay, never mind. And so then, I continued school, got my AA, quit school for a little bit to take care of my mom and my family, went back after she passed, got my bachelor's, and then just recently graduated with my master's in clinical psychology from Pepperdine University, and I got my bachelor's from Dominguez Hills.
Congrats.
Thank you. So I went from sociology, I still have an AA in criminology, or criminal justice. I pretty much could have an AA in sociology, I think. I just didn't declare it or ask for it. Transferred over and got my bachelor's in psychology, and then just did clinical psychology at Pepperdine. But that's how I got into it. I'm still finding my, hook. I don't know if so during my internship, I've been working with kids for years. I was kind of like a behavioral therapist for a while. It's fine. I've been a therapist. Like a behavioral therapist for this company. I've been a nanny. I've worked with kids for a while. So in my internship, I told my mentor at Pepperdine, I don't want to work with kids because I feel like I've already done it. So I wanted to try something new. And so I did my internship for a year and a half or so with the chronically mentally ill. So I got to see bipolar, schizophrenia, personality disorders, addiction that has led to psychosis. I got to see all of that firsthand. I was at a crisis center, so everyone there was 5150'd, which is
clinically insane.
Yeah, clinically insane, or hold for they were either a danger to themselves or to others. I got to just kind of learn more about that, and now the job position I was offered, I'll be working with a lot of the military community because it's in San Diego, and I'll be a bilingual therapist there, so there will be some of the immigrant community that are in like these shelters and homes in San Diego, and I'll be working with families, kids, and individuals. So I'll see a lot of trauma and just kind of see where that goes. I have a passion for all of it. I used to be like, I want to be a couples therapist, and I still think I'm pretty good at that. Like, I'm the relationship advisor kind of thing with friends and stuff. But I just have a passion for helping others. That's where my advocacy comes from. That's where this podcast came from. That's where it all comes from, because I feel I have an advantage as an educated Latina. I have an advantage as a bilingual Latina, and I need to be that voice for my community in whatever, in any way possible, and so that's what drives it.
That's awesome. It's a great segue to the podcast, but I don't want to get there just yet. I don't mean to I'm not saying share the stories of the people, but I mean, how is it dealing with people, because you hear their worst. They don't go in there and tell you, this time at Disneyland I had such a great, they go and tell you their worst. How does that affect you on a day-to-day basis?
Mental health alone has this huge stigma that hovers over it. Going a little bit into like our community of homeless, a lot of them have dealt with trauma. A lot of them are mentally ill. At least over 75% of our homeless community is mentally ill, and a lot of them are addicts. And some of the population of that now are people who don't have a home because of our high rents and stuff, but a lot of them are at their very worst. And so even I didn't know mental health to the level that I know it now. Excuse me. After working at this place and being a part of them and really just getting that first-hand experience made me realize even how much more stigma is around them, those with chronic mental illness. And I understand that there has been situations where someone with a chronic mental illness will have a manic episode and do something where they've harmed a person or where they've done something to scare others. I get that it's scary to walk in LA and, I get it. If I was walking in LA in an area where it's all homelessness and I'm one woman by myself, I'm going to be afraid. It's kind of, natural to be like, okay, am I in danger, or I got to be on the lookout. But they're just also just humans. And I think we forget that when with immigrants, with the homeless, with those in poverty, we forget that we're all just humans. And some of us just have dealt with worse things. We have worse histories. We have stories and trauma that unfortunately has led to some of that mental illness. And so a lot of them had never met their parents, from one shelter to the other, from one foster home to the other. I've had patients who have seen rape and trauma since they were 5, and so they've been abused, they've been neglected, and some of them were just your average teacher that suddenly started having symptoms of bipolar, of schizophrenia, and they're just trying to find the balance of their life again. Chronic mental illness is still very misunderstood, even from the professionals. We don't know. There is no, this is what causes schizophrenia. There is no, this is what causes for you to be bipolar. There's no one medicine that works for every patient. Some of them will be like guinea pigs, and they'll be like, this is my 5th different medication, and I'm still manic, and I still hear voices, and I still feel certain things. And so being around them is so eye-opening on how much a lot of them need us, but that stigma is still so big that they don't have enough help. There's not enough centers. We've had patients that, okay, so where I would intern, it's a 72-hour hold, right? 72-hour hold, and then they do what they can to help them, to get them into a shelter if they're homeless, or to get them into a rehab if they're, addicts, or whatever it is. But a lot of them are waiting, because even here in the United States, there's not enough shelters, there's not enough centers, there's not enough rehabilitation places that have beds available. So then they're waiting, or then they get as adults, they have the right to their own, whatever it is that they want. So some of them will be like, I just want to leave. So they'll go back to being homeless. Or, you hear people all the time, well, if they would just take their medication, they'll be fine. Some of them are homeless. They can't afford the medication, or they can't remember to go pick up the medication. And that goes into our health system, and so
Mr. Trickle-down economics, Reagan closed down all the shelters.
It's all of that. It's really all of that, and everybody has a different story. Everybody has a different reason why they've ended up where they've ended up. I have a family member very close to me that is at a hospital right now, and so because there's been so much trauma in his life, and so he fell into drugs, he fell into all these things, and now he's there. And so it's just it's hard to understand each person's experience, I guess you could say, story and reason why their life has ended up this way. And some of them are just addicts that could maybe be better if they would quit, but they're also addicts that have dealt with trauma and poverty, and so all they've known is meth for the past 8 years, or all they've known is whatever it is that they're addicted to. So they all just have different stories, but again, just going back and tying it all together, I think we need to look out for each other more as human beings. Like you said, all those centers were closed back then, and that's part of the big reason why our homeless community is at an all-time high. So what do we got to do now? Today's generation, today's people, we need to open more. There's so many properties out there that are abandoned. I don't know where we have to build them. I don't know, build a whole city, do something, but we need to find a way to help and take care of also what's going on here in the United States. Our homeless community is at an all-time high. I was actually reading that in just 2018, from 2018 to 2019, in California, our homeless population went up 17%.
That's crazy.
Yes, it's ridiculous. And there's children out there, and there's full-on families. Yes, there's addicts and those with mental illness that have been there for years, but if you drive through these streets, there's an entire community on the sidewalk, and their houses are these tents. And yes, some of them choose to be out there, some of them that's all they've known, but we have to find a way to clean it up. We have to find a way to give them some kind of roof over their head, because especially when the young ones that are out there, the children are only going to fall into the same thing. They're only going to fall into the same drugs because that's all that's available. That's all they know. So
I don't know what the answer is, but there's more vacant houses in the United States than there are homeless people.
Exactly.
And I've said it before. We don't need to give them a brand new house. I get that, but make affordable housing so that the people that are living now, can get a better home. And now suddenly these places are going to need to be rented, so the prices will drop. Now the homeless people, I'm not saying give them fucking rent for 10 years, but okay, 6 months free, get back on your feet, come in. That's a thriving society.
Yeah, exactly. It can be a cycle. It can be some kind of system, We will only house you for 6 months. You have 6 months to find a job. But, I mean, think about it. Oh, that man could find a job if he really looked. Are you really going to give a job to someone that smells and his hair's all gross and his clothes is dirty? No. What do they tell you when you walk in? I tell my little brother this all the time. He's looking for a job now. I'm like, make sure you're nice and clean. Have your resumes ready. Walk in. Be like, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. I'm here, looking for a job. Can I leave you my resume? If a homeless person did that, the person's going to look at them and go, okay, thank you. They're not going to call them. And so they could find a job. No, they cannot. Because we are just as judgmental as the next person. And if somebody walks into your business and really genuinely is asking for a job, but they're dirty or they look a certain way, you're not going to give it to them. And so people have all these responses. Oh, they could find a job. They could figure it out. They shouldn't have had so many kids. But really, you're not going to give them a job. You're not going to help,
It goes back to the whole compassion thing. You want them to do better, but you won't help them be better. It's a terrible saying, but throw them a bone. Throw the guy a bone. Give him something, some type of hope. Give him that hope. Just giving them hope, okay, there's a better tomorrow. Yeah, this job sucks, but at least now I got fucking food for today. Yeah, this job sucks, but at least I'm in AC for 8 hours because I'm here at work, not fucking standing on the side of the street, pretty much begging for money. Because I talked with Duran, you can't give every single person every single time, no matter how much you make or how much you have.
Yeah.
Not every single time. And it boils down to, with the homelessness, I say nobody chooses to be homeless, because even if you choose drugs or whatever, you choose the drugs being at your home.
You deal with. Yeah.
And then when you run out of money for rent, that's when you go homeless. But if you could do drugs at your home, they'd be doing it at home. So and it can happen to you. That's what I always tell people. I've met businessmen that lost everything. I talk about this mechanic that I met in a drug program. He was making $100K a year. Hired some guy, bad influence. They started with coke. They would drink they'd have a couple of beers every night. Started with coke, got into meth. Meth overtook his life. He lost his business, lost his family, lost his cars, his boat, everything. He lost everything. And I remember honest guy, people opened up to me for some reason, and he was telling me if I could go back to that, I'd be doing it. Because for 2 years I was still thriving. And I was getting to party, but he goes, but I can't, because I know where it leads to. I've been homeless for 6 months, and I just said one day, what the fuck, dude? I had a 2-story home with the pool and everything, and now I'm over here, I haven't showered in 2 weeks, and that's when he said, I need to stop this. And some people never get to that point, where I've come down too far. When he went homeless, he was it's only a day, I'll be back tomorrow, and it's only a week, and then you learn to adapt. That's what us humans do. We survive. 2 months later, you're this is cool, dude. I don't gotta worry about bills. I don't got nothing. I just gotta get the next fix.
Or they're in so deep that's all they know.
That's all they know. And like you said, the children, that's all they know.
I had a patient tell me, he was Latino, construction worker, made good money, got into coke, went to meth, and he was now hearing voices, but he was still in denial, I'm not an addict, I just do it sometimes, and that was kind of his mentality. But I was just well, have you thought of these sometimes, because he had just lost his job and all this stuff. And so he had a suicide attempt, and that's how he ended up in there. But I was okay, so you're telling me you're not an addict and you just do it sometimes. And so I brought him brochures and stuff, and I was rehab, so that these sometimes could become no times, and so you can get a job and go back to the life that you had. And then after a couple days that he was in there, he finally told me, I don't think I even know how I would quit. Like, it's become so much a part of him and how he functions that he was like, I don't know how I would quit. I don't even know. It's scary to think of quitting because of what it's going to do to their body, what it's going to do to their mind. They don't know another life. Some of them don't know another life. And you know what I mean? And if we
that's all you know, you do what you know.
Gang life.
Yeah, you grew up in that community.
You talk to some of them and they'll be like, this is what I know. My grandpa was a gangster, my dad's a gangster, and I'm a gangster. This is what I'm supposed to do. This is the life I've known. You know, if you know suburb life, if you know being rich and having a nice home, that's what you know. So yeah, you might not fall into the same things that the kid that lives in Compton fell into because he didn't know your life. You know, and you didn't know his or hers. And so, you know, that saying, like, allow yourself to even imagine, you know, what it's like walking in some of these people's shoes and what they've dealt with, what they've had to do to survive, what they've dealt with, just things they didn't ask for. Mental health, nobody asked to be schizophrenic.
Nobody asked to be depressed.
Nobody asked to be depressed. And then, you can, you know, build yourself up and fall out of that depression. You can. Some people have. I've been depressed. I've known people that have been depressed and they're like,
seasonal depression is a thing, but at the same time, it's on the spectrum. I know you'll know more about, obviously know more about this, but it's a spectrum. Some people are a little depressed, some are a lot. Some people are not on the spectrum at all. And I was reading the study that they actually see like a different world than we do, because it's like connected to your eyesight. So with depression is somehow connected to your eyesight. So you see the world like a little gloomier than you and I. Because, and they say, well, just smile. And that works for us people that don't have depression. But for them, it literally is like a part of their brain eating them up. Yeah. And, you know, cause I read about it just because at a point in my life, I wanted to be like a psychologist. I was really all in love with all that criminal psychologists with serial killers and that type of stuff. So
I love it.
Me too. Listen to episode 5 with Philip. It's beautiful.
Okay.
And so I've looked into it, part of like a hobby. Like, okay, because I analyze their tendencies. You know, okay, like you just sending me stuff that I talked about on the podcast with him. You know, they're murdering animals as children. How will they grow up to be? You know, and he just sent me a link like 2 weeks ago saying like, hey, dude, like, check it out, you know, like the stuff I was talking about. And I was like, I'm not an expert on this. I will never claim to be an expert. Right. I read these things, and my friend Israel Flores, he makes a great case for this. Like, if you're sick, you take a day off work, right? Like, you're like, oh, I can't come into work. My health is not right. Like, why can't you do that with your mental health? Like, sometimes you have those days where you're like, dude, I cannot function. Be it a breakup, be it a bad day at work, be it whatever, maybe it doesn't matter what it is. Because they don't care if you have a headache or you have the flu or a stomach virus. You're sick, don't come in. You're going to affect everybody else. Yet mental health should be looked at the same way. Like, dude, I'm going to be a bitch today. I'm going to be an asshole. I'm going to affect everybody in the wrong way. I'm going to take a mental health day off.
I've done a couple like parent workshops and psychoeducating young kids and stuff. And I say that all the time, you know, and I'll say it in Spanish to them because a lot of them are Latinos. So I've been like, I've volunteered and been hired for some to do them in Spanish. But I'll tell the parents, you know, if your heart hurts, si le duele el corazón, y siente que algo está mal, you know, you feel something's wrong, you're going to go to the doctor. If you fell right now, you got up and fell right now, and you broke your leg, you're going to go to the doctor because you have to take care of that. So if something is wrong emotionally, if there's some kind of instability, if there's something going on with your mental well-being, you don't go to the doctor. You keep pushing and thinking you're going to get over it. And some people do get over it. Some people do overcome postpartum depression on their own. Some people do overcome depression or anxiety on their own. But some of them don't. And they fall into this heavy, 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 heavy mental illness that is now a part of their life. And they've been living with it with so many years. And then you hear, oh, so-and-so committed suicide. Why?
They always looked happy.
They always looked happy.
But it's because that you can't share it. Like, and
you've adjusted to it, and you can't share it because Latinos till this day,
man up.
Whenever I start a conversation, I in any workshop or anything I've done, I ask them, ¿qué me pueden decir de la salud mental? What do you guys know about mental illness? And then the thing very common you continue to hear, pues que está uno un poquito loco, or how many of you have gone to see a therapist? The hands are like 2, 3, 4. They're starting to increase as the years have gone by, but most Latinos there will be like, no. And I'll ask them why. Porque la gente va a pensar que está loco. ¿Y qué va a decir la gente de nosotros? And I have an episode like that on my show, ¿Qué dirá la gente?, that I did with the lady from Spain. That's like her main what she speaks about and stuff, like how we care so much of what other people will say about us that we don't seek that help. We don't go and we don't treat our mental health or our brain muscle as important as our heart and our leg and whatever it is that hurts. And even Latinos have a hard time going to the doctor with their physical well-being. Yeah. I have uncles that are like, no, ¿para qué? But nomás para que me den mala noticia. Mejor así me quedo hasta que me muera. And I'm just like, uncle, but you've been sick for like 10 days. Like, just get some antibiotics and take care of that shit. No, aquí estoy bien con lo que tengo en la casa. So if we already have a hard time taking care of our physical well-being because we can't afford to take a day off of work, because we can't afford to leave our kids somewhere to go take care of ourselves, there's no way nobody's going to make time for their mental health.
That's... I said I was, just one of the things I said I was going to do a website, do a podcast, do this. And I said, I'm going to seek out therapy. I'm like, I know I'm a little fucking crazy, a little fucked up, but I was like, I keep pushing it on because I'm like, I'm scared to tell, like, I self-diagnose, which is like a terrible thing to do. And I'm like,
yeah.
All right. So, like, I know I did this before. I probably coped this way with that. I did this because of that. And I'm like, I'm scared to know, Or what is it called? Hold on, give me a second. I'm having a brain fart. I was going to throw out a word that I'll come back to it. It'll come to me as I'm speaking. But so I was just like, I know I kind of I check out every checklist, for that. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, if I'm self-aware of that, maybe I should just work on it. That's what I've been working on, right? Trying to be a better person, be a better...
Take care of yourself.
Yeah, but I'm like, I should probably... I'm going to at some point, because I just said I have to. I just need a vent sometimes. I can't share with the audience, like, oh, this is what sometimes I think, and then like, what the fuck's wrong with you? And I'm like, no, it's just some thoughts that go through my head. It's not like I'm going to act on them, just like sometimes, like, I don't know if it's safe to say, because people told me you shouldn't share these things, but I've been like, I go into like, I wonder who will be at my funeral. I wonder who, like, if I were to
I think about that all
kill
the time.
myself, and I'm reading that you're not supposed to, like, that's not normal. I'm like, so I'm not normal. So maybe I should, like, I won't act on them. You feel me? Like, I love my daughter. I will never leave her like that. I won't do that to her. My parents same way, but I wonder if I were to die, who would miss me for real, and who would just like make an Instagram post, like, because you see it, and like, dude, you don't even know the guy. You just fucking want the likes. And so I'll be like, all right, I wonder who would come to my funeral, because I got friends out of state or whatever. Like, which friends would I go out of state for the funeral? I'm like, well, if I could afford it, obviously, I could go there. So, and then reading and talking to people, are like, I never had those thoughts. Like, why would you think like that? Like, how do you think of a world without you? I'm like, I have a lot of free time. I think about different things.
I think it's a good thing that needs to be thought of, that needs to be talked about, because you have to see life that way, or at least that's my belief. If I die today, who would care? Not just who would care, but what am I leaving behind?
That's what I look at it like. Who have I affected in a way where...
Who have I affected, exactly.
In a way where it's like them taking... not just a day off work, but like, okay, like, this sucks, I'm gonna miss him, let me go say my goodbyes. I don't believe like in... I don't mean to insult anybody, I always say it. I don't believe in an afterlife or anything like that. I don't believe like in a... whatever it may be, whatever religion or... but I'm like, who would be like, okay, I'm going to say a prayer for this guy. Because I have friends that are still very religious. The last 2 episodes prior to yours were very avid Christians. And, something that to this day, I feel like when somebody tells you, I'll pray for you, I think it's like one of the biggest things is like, they think, not to belittle their beliefs, but I think they think that there's a higher power. And they're asking that higher power, not something for themselves. They're asking for that higher for something for like me. I'm like, dude, don't pray for me, dude. They're like save your prayers for like the good people. And they're like, nah, dude, like I'll pray for you. Like I want everything to go right.
Everyone deserves a prayer. I'm a Catholic, but
and so I just kind of we were just having a little discussion on one of the group chats I'm a part of. It's too many. I can't be in all of them, but this one was actually fun because we were just talking about like the theory of God, the thought of God. And so lately it's been coming up, and me and my brother were just talking about it last night. He goes, but I think it gives people that nice sense of relief, you know, like everything's going to be all right. And I go, and that's not a bad thing. I just don't happen to believe in that. But if people can be better people because of it. Because
of something they can look forward to.
Exactly.
It's finding that niche of life. What is it that keeps you going? And some of them is faith. A lot of the immigrants that I met this weekend, like I asked them that question. How and what keeps you going? And they would just be like, fe que las cosas van a estar mejor. No sé cómo, no sé a dónde llegaré, pero fe que las cosas van a estar mejor. And it's just, I just have faith that times will be better. I don't know how and I don't know when, but I have faith that times are going to be better. So if faith is what drives you, faith is what drives you. If your daughter's what drives you, that's your faith. That's your belief that things are going to be okay as long as she's by your side, or as long as you can do it for her. Exactly. Everyone has, you know, whatever drives them. Yeah, and that's all you need to keep pushing. And, you know, back to mental health, some people don't have that, or they have a hard time finding that, or they'll be depressed or have some mental illness, and they'll be surrounded by so many people that love them, but all they see is what they're dealing with or what their illness. It takes over you, you know? And so, you know, some people don't understand that. Some people will be like, oh, well, I don't know why he killed himself. He had children and everybody loved him and he had a perfect life. It doesn't matter what life you have when with mental illness. It just is. It's an illness. It's another cancer. It's another disease. It's another thing that when you hear someone has oh, pobrecita, but when you hear someone schizophrenic, ooh.
It's scary. It's like, why? Don't associate with them because you don't know when they'll have an episode. You hear somebody's depressed, it's like, man up. Es que no sombrecito. Like, not to me, but I've heard people like that I know are clinically depressed. You know, they go to therapy, they do whatever. And other people be like, oh, man, it's just an attitude. And I'm like, it's not. Like, we can say that because we don't deal with it. Like, I don't think I'm depressed. I just kind of, I guess it's a bad thing, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, but some people consider it bad. I have a dark humor. So we do like a couple of the group chats I'm in, it's all dark humor. Like, what do you want for Christmas? A noose, you know, we'll send a picture of a noose and people are like, oh. And then if I did that in another group chat and everybody's like, oh fuck, like, you okay? And I was like, dude, this is just like the raunchy comedy. Yeah. Like, that's what I talked about in one of the episodes with like Anthony Jeselnik. Like, I can't tell people like, hey, to go listen to his show because it's very, very dark. He doesn't mean any of it. I hope he doesn't. But it's me that I'm used to his humor. I'm like, oh, dude, this is gold. And I kind of did tell my friend he should listen to it. And I don't know if he has, but I was like, I maybe shouldn't tell people to listen to it because they might not be ready for it. Their own sense of humor.
Mm-hmm. Or their own, what they enjoy.
But, okay. We could continue on that. But I do want to get into the podcast, your podcast, Spanglish. That's nice.
So, yeah. So,
How did that start?
Acá Entre Nos was an idea since undergrad. I've always and still tried to figure out and am trying to figure out how I can be a voice and help the Latino community. It's all about educating them. What I mean by educating them is learning about mental health. Psychoeducating is really important, for people to see how they can help their children and their grandkids and break that stigma and hopefully build better and more emotionally stable generations. So it was an idea, and originally, and maybe still someday, I thought of wanting to opening up a center and titling it Acá Entre Nos. I'm a huge fan of Chente, but not just because I'm a fan of him, but that meaning of Acá Entre Nos is such a big thing within the Latino community, because and it has a bad rep and a good rep. So we're very united as Latinos. Most families are, they live for each other, but that also causes people to not speak up, to not seek help, because ¿qué va a decir la gente de nosotros si se dan cuenta que mi hijo es así, o que mi hija está pasando por esto, o que yo estoy pasando por eso? And so you hear it a lot in our families, in our community. Esto se queda acá entre nos. No le vayas a decir a nadie que tu papá es un alcohólico. No le vayas a decir a nadie que esto te pasó. No queremos que la gente sepa. And so acá entre nos is it's the here, it has to stay here in this home, nobody should know our business, is something that's causing that stigma, but also that can be transferred over to teaching people that it's okay that we're here for each other. It's okay that Acá Entre Nos exists in your unity of your family. It's okay that you're there to love and support each other, but it's also okay to seek help acá entre nos, acá in our community, acá entre me, the therapist, and you, me, our community and you. And so using that unity that we hold so strong within our Latino community, and transitioning it to, it's okay to seek help, and it'll still be acá entre nos. It's okay to seek help and still hold your secrets, or still hold what keeps you united as a family. So that's kind of where the title came from. And I was like, I want to build a center. I want to, open up a center where we have, therapy and group therapy and groups and chats about autism and how to deal with that when you have a child or it shows up in your family, how to deal with addiction, how to deal with certain things, and so it was all, an idea of a center, which I do still hope to open someday, but then the podcast idea came in as a YouTube channel. So, between friends, like, oh, maybe a YouTube channel that Latinos could watch, or some kind of radio station. And then I'm kind of shy when it comes to the camera. And so I was like, there's no way I could do a YouTube channel without bloopers and laughing and, no se me van a salir bien las palabras. And so then podcast started to be a thing. And so the idea was there, but I didn't want to do it alone. And I think it's because I doubt myself sometimes, my insecurities, and I thought I couldn't do it alone. So I had a co-host, Dawn Marie, and she was wonderful. But, she's working on other things now. So we just recently went our separate ways, and I hope to continue this. I'm not on it. Like, I don't release an episode every week. I don't release an episode every 2-3 weeks. Like, sometimes it's only 2 episodes a month. 2 months ago we had like 1 episode that month, but it's just a thing that I'm doing to hopefully be a voice, help educate, and just put it out there, and be something that can represent for the Latino community. So yeah, that's what
great.
it's for.
And touching back on what you said, it's relatable. It's because that's one thing that people have told me. I like you because you're Mexican. It's not a bad thing that you're Mexican, like in your stories you talk about this and that, like it's stuff I've gone through. And so for you, female, young, Latina, you speak the language, the listeners be like, okay, I mean, it's not just for Spanish speaking people, like somebody that speaks only English could still get it, but you have that relativity that where they can, like, okay, I know her story. Oh, she's not afraid to talk about this. Mm-hmm. And that opens up frontiers for them, because some people just need that little kick in the ass. I say, not a little push, you need a little kick in the ass. And I'm like, you know what, I am a little fucked up. Like, I'm waiting for that little push. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just like, I gotta seek some, just shoot the shit with the fucking therapist. But just so you can be like, hey, dude, you're alright, you're not that bad, that's normal. Like, oh, fuck, way off my shoulders.
Yeah.
And going back to what you said, like, we need to be talking about these issues.
We do.
And
the social
so
issues, the mental
podcast
health,
and
everything.
That's, people will find it. People will find you. And it's good that you're so educated, because you could, you know, like, if I were to do it, I'd just be like, well, this is what I think this is, but this, no, you have a fucking degree for it. You know what you're talking about, you get me? And so, not only is it relatable, but they're learning, you know, like.
Yeah, and originally it was just, gonna be a show to psychoeducate and do just mental health. But I'm also very passionate and a big advocate for social issues. So then, at the end of every episode, I do Chisme del Día, and we talk about anything and everything, you know, or I now talk about anything and everything, but mostly what's been the conversation lately is a lot of the social issues and things that are going on. So I try to do psychoeducation for the most part, but sometimes we just talk about what's going on and what needs to be talked about. And then I recently started special segments as a part of the show, and I'm calling them Tell My Story. And also just giving people the platform to come and tell their story and what they've dealt with, whether it's mental health or whatever trauma or, you know, journey that they've been through. If they're willing to share, then just share, because especially in our community, and I'm sure in many other communities, sometimes it's just nice to hear that someone else is going through it too, or that someone else has been there, because it allows that little part of someone sharing is already enough to destigmatize a little and make that person feel, oh,
I'm not alone.
I'm not alone. Because you do feel alone, even though you hear a lot of people, a certain percent of America is depressed, certain percent of America is dealing with obesity, certain percent of America is dealing with addiction. You hear it, but in the moment that you're going through it, you think you're the only person going through it. You're like, why me? Why is this happening to me? Why am I dealing with this? And then that's how you connect with others. And just listening to a show, or, you know, your show, whatever it is people come on here and share, just listening to that, someone's going to connect to it. One of your listeners, maybe just one or three or four or five, are going to connect to someone's story and be like, wow, I've been through that too. And that's how they dealt with it. This is how I've dealt with it. And so it's just how you
and,
learn
like, I'm gonna
from
be
each
okay.
other and connect.
I'm going to be okay. The last episode I dropped on Thursday, right? Another podcaster, he shared, like, you know, he was at a low. He wasn't working. He had just got engaged, so they're planning for a wedding, and, you know, just people like, dude, like, that's some real shit. And he even said, I don't open up like that to people. I don't know what, we had met 30 minutes prior before we started recording, like, kind of like we did, just kind of, and people were messaging me like, bro, like, that's a real ass fool. Like, he's not afraid to talk about his struggles, because his podcast is Process to Purpose, right? Like you were talking about purpose earlier. This is his purpose now, so he wants to share with people, like, it's gonna be okay. And that's what people were telling me, like, seeing him, like, a few, I don't want to share their story, you know, cause out of respect, but they were telling me, like, I haven't really told anybody, but, you know, this is my situation. And hearing him talk, like, in retrospect, you know, this was 18 months ago, and this is where I'm now. I'm working, I'm doing this, I'm married, happily married, I'm, you know, getting up at before 4 a.m. every day, like, one person in particular was like, I want to listen to each episode of his to see his journey, because I just need some help right now. And it was just mostly financial trouble. And I told him, dude, money comes and goes. You'll be all right. Like, focus on you, though. Make sure you're okay. Like, I'm here. If you need something to vent to, we don't have to record. A lot of people have asked that, like, homie-wise, like I was telling you, like, they're like, nah, dude, I have nothing to talk about. I'm like, yes, you do. Because people appreciate the struggle is one thing I say. People appreciate the struggle because they know, like, okay, like, you keep fighting. All right, I respect the fuck out of that. Me personally, like, when somebody tells me, like, this is what I went through, I'm like, dude, and you're still here, man. Keep pushing. You're going to be all right. Like, you're proving everybody wrong. You're proving yourself right. So keep pushing. And like you said, it's 2 people reached out to me and told me, like, that story was just so humbling because, like you said,
a way to connect.
I'm not alone. Like, I'm not alone. I'm like, you're not alone. Listen to his shit.
That's all people need to know, that they're not alone.
And I tell everybody, like, if nobody loves you, Hector loves you. I make posts about it, and people think I'm joking, but I'm like, nah, like, I'm too much of a coward to lose a friend to suicide, to lose a friend like that. So I'm like, no, if you need somebody to talk to, dude, like, my number is public. I don't hide from people. Like, if you find me, we'll talk. We could just fucking shoot the shit. We all had bad days. I had bad days where you just get home and you're like, what's going on? Like, got the whole world.
We all
There's like
do. You're exhausted sometimes.
7 billion people, and it feels like everything's on you. Like, what am I doing wrong? What can I change? And I'm like, I've been through it. Like, just 10 months ago, 12 months ago, it was like crazy to see myself now. Like, I'm nowhere where I want to be. But at the same thing, like, I'm like, I'll share my journey once the time is right. But not there yet. You know, I'm not.
Yeah, you'll get there.
Yeah. But I applaud you for everything you're doing. One thing I wanted to mention was, next time you do that, you said September-ish you're planning, give me a list of the items you need. Like, I will get my list. I got some amazing friends that go above and beyond with everything I do. Like, seriously, my support group is so fucking tremendous. When I had my business, I did a Thanksgiving giveaway, and then we fed 5 families, and I put in some money, but it was mostly my friends that did. You know, I just had the platform for it, and we were able to feed 5 families that didn't have a Thanksgiving dinner. You know, and it was just, I told them, like, dude, I will never forget that. Like, I just made a post on Instagram, like, hey, this is what we're doing. If you guys want to donate $5-10, doesn't matter. Some people were like, let me buy one family, whatever you're buying for, like, a family, I'll match it, like, for one family. People met up with me at the store to buy other people's stuff, you get me?
Yeah, and it's so amazing to see people get together and do something.
At Christmas, we did I grew up poor. My parents did everything they could for me, but sometimes it wasn't enough. Funny story, I have a picture to prove it if the listeners want to see it. One year, I needed, like, a notebook for school, like, just like a notebook, you know. I was like, you're out of paper. So there's an actual picture of me opening up a notebook of paper, like you said, the kid, because I was a writer. I've always been a writer, and so I would go through paper like crazy, and like a college road notebook, like that was my Christmas gift that year. And, like, you know, at the time I was sad, like, what the fuck, you want a toy? Your neighbors got toys or whatever, and I got a fucking notebook. But now it humbles me, like, dude, remember the days when you got a notebook? Now you could take. I just saw Toy Story with my daughter, like, I could give her when my parents couldn't, you know. And like they say, we try to make not just materialistic shit. I mean, like, you try to give what you didn't have as a child. You know, I had fucking 4 siblings. My parents couldn't afford to take us to the movies all the time.
Yeah, there was 4 of us too.
And so now that I could do these little things with her, I'm like, people ask me, dude, I'm not technologically savvy, but I know how to, like, get everything either on my phone or my tablet or whatever, computer. I can watch all these movies. I'm like, but no, my daughter's going to remember all these times we go to the movies. You've seen, like, every week we go to the movies. And it's just, like, because I want that, like, what do you do? Like, what? I go to movies with daddy. And, like, she already said it, like, oh, what movie you want to watch next? And I'm like, next time I don't know what, Lion King, I think, is coming out in a few weeks.
Yeah.
But, fuck, I lost my train of thought, too.
You were saying, yeah, like, giving
back. Mm-hmm. We went to, I did another one for Christmas, you know, like the Christmas gifts, and people showed up and just brought, like, they know the situation, right? So they're like wrapped gifts or unwrapped gifts, but everything brand new. And I'm like, dude, like, they got families of their own, they got children to take care of, but just 2 toys, 1 toy, they add up. We went outside of Food for Less in El Monte, and, like, people were just on Christmas Eve, if you're going out, like, grocery shopping, buying a few things, you know, it's because trying to distract the kids. I remember my parents used to do that. You don't want to be thinking about Christmas, the stuff you're not getting. So we just parked outside, and as kids were walking, I'm like, hey, you want a toy? And their lights just brightened up, and that's why, like, that's all my friends, you get me? Like, I don't make enough money to be like, let me buy this, let me buy that. I just bought a couple, but with a little bit from everybody, we have a lot of toys.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is, those are the people listening right now. So I can help you.
Yes, of course.
So make a list, and, you know, obviously I'll share it on social media or whatever, but it doesn't have to be, I don't know if you could take toys, but we could take toys for these kids. I don't know if I have the space for it, but I mean, like, as far as you were talking about hygienic products, I can go to Costco and get, like, I don't know if it's better for, like, individual, like, you know, like when you go camping type of stuff. Like at Walmart, they have little Listerine, little toothpaste, little toothbrush, or if you need the big one, but we can make bags and just, you know, I can't go to Mexico. I'm still in the process.
I know.
I call myself a wetbag. People say I shouldn't, but that, to me, it's just a word. But I would love to be a part of the help.
Yes,
you know,
of course. And anyone that would like to help, obviously, is welcome to. And I'll for sure do the same thing that I did with the shoe drive. You know, set up a flyer and put it out there. And thank you for, you know, suggesting for us to share it in your platform too, because that's all we need, you know, as a community. If we unite and someone gives what they can, if you can only give one thing, that's okay, you know, and some people can get more, but all of that put together will be just more than enough to take it out there and do it so that these people could have something. It's not maybe much to all their worries that they have, but it's something, you know.
One less thing off their fucking shoulders. Like, It's been beautiful. I thank you for coming on. Anything else you want to get into? We touched up on a lot of subjects, so I don't want to.
Yeah. No, that's it. I mean, I'm obviously just in this world doing my thing.
You're doing a great job, by the way. If you don't hear it often, you're doing a great job.
Thank you. What I can. I'm a therapist. I'm a podcaster. And
a writer. Oh shit! We didn't even talk about your book. You're an author.
Yes, I am.
Tell me more.
A writer. You could find me at K Beautiful Mind. I think it's _1 that I have in there.
I think it's after the K.
Yeah.
K_ Beautiful Mind.
No, it's K Beautiful Mind and then an underscore.
Listen to her, not me.
But yeah, I'm a writer. That's my therapy. That's my self-help. Just writing. I write quotes and poetry. But I did write a book. And that was part of my therapeutic process. I have sat on the chair of a therapist's office because I'm a believer that in order for me to help others sitting at the chair in my office, I have to have sit there once, you know, to understand it. So I've been through therapy myself. That'll probably be a way even longer story to tell, so we won't get into it. But, you know, my mother is deceased. I became the guardian of 3 siblings at age 23, and that's how I dealt with all of my own mental health and my own things that I was dealing with. So I wrote a book. It's a memoir. It's titled How I Became the Love of My Life, and it was just my process after a very difficult breakup and losing my mom to cancer. And it's just a book that I wrote kind of for fun and to journal, and then self-published it. I just finished my second book, which is poetry and quotes, but I'm working with the artist who's it's going to be a lot of like colorful cultural Latino art to go with these poems. But yeah, check out my page, buy the book if you'd care to read it. It's self-published, so what's the word I'm trying to find? It's not no New York bestseller, you know. I edited it myself with the help of others that read it, and it's just something I put out there. But yeah, you can find me on at K Beautiful Mind, and then obviously at Acá Entre Nos __ for the podcast. And that's it. That's all I got.
That's awesome. So it's not a self-help podcast, but the story has been amazing. It's been really fun. I looked at the time. I was like, oh shit, because it's just floating. You know, I didn't even. But just in case there's some listeners that didn't really get the message, so I always do this like words of wisdom. Even though you've been very wise and you've been giving great sound bites, just so they have something, you know, to end it up. A lot of people listen just to this. I found a forum very popular on Reddit, and so I plugged it as like just the self-help podcast segment. Like, just listen to the last like fucking 2 minutes. You don't gotta listen to all of it, because some people don't have the time for that. And they like it. Like, they're like, this is pretty cool because it's like different people, and some people will like check out the first 5 minutes to see who I'm speaking to, and they'll be like, okay, that's their, you know. So whatever you feel like sharing.
My words of wisdom. So it was a big reality check when my mother was dying. When my mother was diagnosed with cancer and dealing with cancer, any illness hits an entire family, whether it's addiction, cancer, mental health. It's everyone. It hits everybody. And so I would tell people all the time, my mom didn't just get cancer. We got cancer. And so it was something, one of the most difficult things that I've dealt with in my life, but also one of the things that I've dealt with in my life that have helped me grow and become an even better individual than I probably was 5 years ago. You know, I've always had the heart and the desire to help others, but it does something to you and it changes you for the rest of your life. But one of the things that my mom and I would talk a lot as she was, going through her chemo and all of that. And one day I asked her, like, what would she have done different if she could, now that she knew she was dying? What would she have done different? And she told me, I wouldn't have worked to die. And so in that conversation, she said to me, don't work to die. Whatever it is that you end up doing, I know you're going to go back to school because you better. She said, I know you're going to, pursue your career, but make sure that you're doing what you really, truly love, and that you're allowing yourself to live, and that you're allowing yourself to unravel and to take care of your own mental health and your own well-being, and that you're not just working to die. She's like, nosotros los Latinos o los que no tenemos mucho, we think, I gotta work. We don't take vacation because I gotta work and I gotta make money. But there's always a way, she said to me. She's like, there's always a way for you to find, a ver cómo le haces, but taking that time for yourself. And she said, I would have lived a little more. I love dancing, I love concerts, I love music. And so that's what she told me. And I mean, for her, it was harder than maybe other people that have, their husband or another person in the household to help financially, because she ended up being a single mom, and then was with my stepdad, and then after he was reported back to a single mom, but now with 4 kids. So it was hard for her not to work to die. But even she, in that moment of the last days of her life, was like, I should have lived a little more. And so that's how I live now. I am trying my very, very best to not work to die and to find time to just enjoy, even if it's just chit-chatting with someone like we are right now, and laughing and interacting with others, spending time with my loved ones, my friends. I have amazing people also in my life who I appreciate so much. But that's my words of wisdom. Make the best of life that you can. Sometimes it's hard because financially we're not doing so well, or we have other stressors, but hopefully fall into a place in your life where you're doing what you love, whatever it is, or you're finding a way to do what you love and spend time with those around you, because we're not all here forever. And there's horrible things going on in the world, as we have talked and discussed, and there's so much more that we haven't talked about that is happening. But just finding that time to just take care of yourself, self-care, and appreciate what you have and try to make the best of it. My other little quote that I like to go by is, never go in search of love, go in search of life, because love will just surround you as you are just searching for what it is that drives you in this life. And yeah, that's what I got for everybody.
That's beautiful. I'm going to have you on in the future, like, definitely. So, after the San Diego move, all that stuff, you got a lot on your plate. But maybe after, like, with the September run and all that, like, there's, just thinking right now, like, we could have talked for hours. There's so much to go into. We really
could have. And that's why I was like, there's always so much to talk about.
But there's a good introduction episode for people get to know you, get to hear you, check out your podcast, check out your book, check out your page. So this is great. Thank you for joining me. This is awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for those of you that are listening. And yeah, we can't all fix everything and do much, but what you could do to help, and even if it's just a hello to the person walking next to you, you have no idea how much that can mean to somebody. So
send it on that note. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
A lot of information to process, right? Pretty cool. Make sure to follow Kelsey's podcast page at Acá Entre Nos, and her writer's page at KBeautifulMind_. As always, you can follow the podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube by looking up the Cool Kids Table Podcast, and on Twitter by looking up the Cool Kids Pod. The website is thecoolkidstablepodcast.com. Thanks for listening. See you next time.